Something is shifting around your life, and deep down you can already sense it. The tension you've been feeling is not imagination, fear, or overthinking. It is the quiet signal that hidden things are beginning to rise to the surface. For a long time, situations unfolded behind your back without your knowledge. Conversations happened in rooms you never entered. Decisions were made without your voice being present. Narratives were shaped while you stood outside the circle, wondering why resistance kept appearing in places where you had done nothing wrong. You felt the pressure, the strange delays, the sudden distance from people who once felt close. Yet through all of it, heaven was not silent. Scripture says in Luke 12:2 that nothing hidden remains concealed forever. Everything eventually comes into the light. This is not just symbolic language, it is a spiritual reality. There are seasons when God allows pressure to build, not to harm you, but to expose what has been quietly working against you. Exposure often arrives suddenly, like thunder in the middle of a storm. But thunder does not create the storm. It simply reveals what was already there. When your life belongs to God, your name is not left unprotected. Your integrity is not forgotten. Your prayers are not ignored. Every silent prayer you whispered in confusion has been heard. The pain you carried was not meaningless. It sharpened your discernment. The pressure awakened your awareness. What felt like isolation was often protection in disguise. While you thought doors were closing against you, God may have been keeping you away from environments that would have pulled you deeper into hidden corruption. Now the atmosphere is changing. Systems that once looked untouchable are beginning to shake. Stories that were manipulated are being questioned again. People who felt secure in deception are starting to realize that truth has a way of resurfacing, no matter how deeply it is buried. Your name may come up in these moments, but not as the source of chaos. Instead, you may be recognized as the one who endured it, the one who stayed steady while confusion surrounded you. Do not panic when truth begins to move loudly. Vindication rarely arrives quietly. This is the time to stay calm, mature, and grounded. If unexpected conversations begin, if questions are asked, if situations resurface, stand firm in your integrity. Truth does not need rehearsed explanations. Integrity does not tremble under examination. What people misunderstood as weakness was often restraint. What they called silence was wisdom. What looked like your downfall was actually divine preservation. The schemes formed around you were never as secure as they appeared. Deception always leaves traces behind. Lies require more lies to survive. Manipulation becomes heavier with every attempt to protect it. Eventually, cracks begin to show. Scripture warns in Numbers 32:23 that sin will always reveal itself in the end. That principle cannot be escaped. Pride leaves evidence. Corruption eventually overreaches, and when people believe they are safe, they often become careless. You may have questioned why relationships suddenly shifted, why people became distant, why invitations stopped, why opportunities slowed down without explanation. But what if those delays were not rejection? What if they were protection? What if God was holding you back while truth gathered evidence on your behalf? Sometimes the greatest form of mercy is separation from environments that are quietly collapsing beneath the surface. Justice does not always move instantly, but it always moves with purpose. It may come through investigations, conversations, reviews, testimonies, or unexpected revelations. God often works through ordinary systems to bring hidden things into the open. What is happening now is not random chaos, it is correction. It is the moment when darkness realizes it can no longer hide comfortably. There is also an important difference between revenge and revelation. God is not driven by emotion or impulse. He moves with precision and timing. Exposure too early can be dismissed. Exposure at the right moment becomes undeniable. That is why you had to endure seasons where nothing made sense. God was building clarity that could not be argued away once the truth emerged. In Psalm 37, we are reminded that when we trust God, He brings righteousness into the light like the brightness of day. Notice the process in that promise. Truth is brought forth. It emerges. It moves from hidden places into visibility. Every quiet prayer you prayed, asking God to defend your name, invited His light into the situation. And light never negotiates with darkness. It exposes it. The people who tried to control outcomes never controlled heaven. They believed influence, position, reputation, or power could shield them forever. But no system built on deception can survive unlimited exposure. Eventually, the tide of truth rises, and unstable foundations begin to collapse. What was built through manipulation cannot endure examination. What was spoken falsely against you cannot outlive reality. So steady your heart. The urgency you feel is not the sign of destruction approaching. It is the sign of deliverance moving closer. The shaking that is happening around you is not designed to ruin your life. It is clearing away what never belonged in it. And when everything settles, you will realize this season was never the beginning of your downfall. It was the beginning of your vindication. What is happening around you is not superstition or coincidence. It is the hand of God moving with purpose. You may begin hearing old conversations resurface. You may discover that records are being reviewed, questions are being asked, or people who once stayed silent are finally speaking up. And when your name appears in those discussions, your first reaction may be fear or tension. But calm your spirit. Your name being mentioned is not automatically an attack against you. Sometimes it is simply part of truth bringing clarity where confusion once existed. Exposure is not always about accusation. Many times it is about separation. It is the process of distinguishing truth from false assumptions. There may be parts of your old story that you have to leave behind. Relationships built on misunderstanding may fade away. Certain connections may not survive what is being revealed. But what God is bringing into your future is far healthier and cleaner than what you endured in the past. He is separating your integrity from another person's corruption. He is making it clear that being connected to something is not the same as participating in it. That distinction matters because without it, your future could remain tied to deception that was never truly yours. God does not expose things for entertainment or humiliation. He reveals truth either to bring repentance or to remove what refuses correction. Before situations reach public exposure, there are usually many quiet opportunities for honesty. There are moments when people could admit wrong, choose humility, or change direction quietly. But pride often rejects those opportunities. And when people ignore conviction in private, eventually truth becomes impossible to hide publicly. As C.S. Lewis once said, God whispers through comfort, speaks through conscience, but shouts through pain. What feels loud right now is not random chaos. It is accumulated deception collapsing under accumulated truth. As things unfold, guard your heart carefully. Do not mistake exposure as permission to celebrate another person's downfall. This is not about ego winning. It is about truth prevailing. If bitterness takes root in you now, it can damage the very restoration you prayed for. Stay calm, stay grounded, stay measured in how you respond. People are watching more than the situation itself. They are watching your character inside the situation. They will notice whether you react emotionally or remain steady. They will notice whether you exaggerate or simply speak honestly. In moments like this, your composure becomes part of your testimony. What you are seeing is not the destruction of your life, it is the removal of distortion from your story. False assumptions are being challenged. Delays may finally begin to lift because hidden obstructions are being removed. God is aligning truth with your reputation again. He is aligning integrity with recognition. He is aligning your prayers with manifestation. The pressure may increase before everything settles, because structures built on deception rarely collapse quietly. But remember this clearly. If God allowed the exposure, He already accounted for your protection within it. You are not standing at the center of destruction. You are standing at the edge of vindication. And when the dust finally settles, truth, not rumor, will remain. Now comes the most important part of this process, your response. Exposure may belong to God, but composure belongs to you. When conversations shift and unexpected calls come, when your name is discussed in places you are not present, the true test will not simply be your innocence, it will be your maturity. Many people lose the victory they prayed for because they react emotionally the moment clarity begins to arrive. Do not make that mistake. Your first temptation may be to defend yourself loudly, explain every detail, or correct every rumor immediately. Resist that urge. Restraint is not weakness, it is controlled strength. Proverbs 17:27 reminds us that wise people use words carefully. In sensitive moments, fewer words often carry greater power. Truth does not require performance. Integrity does not need theatrics. If you are asked to speak, speak with calmness, honesty, and clarity. No exaggeration, no hidden revenge inside your words, just truth. Another temptation will be pride when confirmation finally arrives. Be careful there too. Romans 12:19 teaches that vengeance belongs to God, not to us. If God is handling justice, you do not need to handle humiliation. There is a difference between relief and arrogance. You may feel relieved when truth surfaces, but never allow that relief to turn into mockery or pride. The moment you rejoice over another person's fall, you risk stepping outside the protection that carried you through the storm. Fear may also try to grip you. Your heart may race when authority figures begin reviewing situations or when important conversations resurface. But if you have walked honestly, investigation is not your enemy. Truth welcomes examination. Lies fear it. If people ask questions, answer without panic. If records are reviewed, let them be reviewed. Calmness under pressure becomes powerful evidence on its own. In today's culture, public opinion changes quickly. Headlines shift overnight. Social media reacts instantly. But your assignment is not to control perception. Your responsibility is to protect your character. Character survives long after noise fades away. When all of this passes, people will remember not only what happened, but how you carried yourself while it happened. Sometimes your greatest weapon is disciplined silence. Not silence rooted in fear, but silence rooted in confidence that God is already working. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Stillness does not mean weakness or inactivity. It means refusing to let chaos control your spirit. The storm may swirl around you, but you do not have to swirl with it. Let facts speak for themselves. Let lawful processes unfold. Let heaven handle what only heaven can handle. What you have endured is deeper than misunderstanding or betrayal. At its core, this has also been spiritual warfare. Not the dramatic version people often imagine, but a real battle over influence, credibility, purpose, and calling. Whenever your life carries purpose, resistance follows. Ephesians 6 reminds us that the real battle is not only against flesh and blood, but against deeper spiritual forces working through pride, envy, greed, and insecurity. The attacks against you may have followed a pattern. First accusation, then isolation, then attacks on your character, followed by delays, exhaustion, and pressure. That pattern is not random. The enemy often begins with distortion before destruction. If he can distort how others see you, he can limit opportunities around you. If he can distort how you see yourself, he can silence your confidence and calling. But here is the truth that changes everything. Heaven's verdict over your life was never against you. Before anything began shifting publicly, God had already spoken. Isaiah 54:17 declares that no weapon formed against you will prosper. Notice the promise carefully. Weapons may form, opposition may rise, accusations may circulate, but their final success is denied by God Himself. The silence you endured may have felt unbearable. The delays may have felt unfair. You may have wondered if God even saw what was happening. But sovereignty does not always look like interruption. Sometimes it looks like permission. Sometimes God allows hidden things to continue for a season so that when truth finally comes forward, no one can deny it. God sometimes allows situations to continue longer than we expect, so the truth can fully develop before it is revealed. Partial exposure leaves room for confusion, but complete exposure closes the cycle once and for all. What you are seeing now is not the destruction of your story, but the rewriting of its ending. The beginning may have been filled with betrayal, confusion, sleepless nights, and moments where you questioned your own judgment. But the ending will not be controlled by deception. It will be directed by God's authority. Spiritual warfare often tries to make you feel isolated. It whispers that you are imagining things, overreacting, or misunderstanding what is happening around you. But the pressure you felt sharpened your discernment. That uneasy feeling was not paranoia, it was awareness. The silence you practiced was not weakness either, it was wisdom. And now that truth is surfacing, remember this clearly. The battle was never equal. God does not fight from a position of uncertainty. He fights from authority. Colossians 2:15 reminds us that Christ already overcame every power and authority through the cross. That victory is not distant theology. It reaches directly into your life. It covers every false accusation, every manipulated situation, and every attempt to distort your name. The shaking happening around you is not proof that evil is winning. It is proof that deception has been confronted. Darkness only reacts because light has entered the room. If lies were truly secure, they would remain hidden. If manipulation were stable, it would not be unraveling now. The unraveling itself is evidence that heaven has already moved. Genesis 50:20 says, "What was meant for evil, God used for good." That does not deny the pain you experienced. It reveals that God's purpose stands above it. What was designed to weaken you is now refining you. What tried to silence you is becoming the very thing that positions you for greater strength and clarity. This season is not the end of your story, it is the unlocking of it. What appears dramatic on the surface is actually purposeful underneath. The exposure, the correction, the collapse of false narratives, these things are not your downfall. They are the removal of hidden restraints that quietly delayed your progress for far too long. There were seasons when opportunities slowed down, relationships shifted, finances stalled, and doors closed without explanation. You sensed resistance, but could not fully identify where it was coming from. Now you understand that deception connected to your name created weight around your life. Even innocent association can create delay. But when truth separates you from what was corrupt, the weight begins to lift. This is why the exposure is not mainly about another person falling. It is about you finally being released. Released from suspicion, released from hidden pressure, released from carrying consequences that were never yours to bear. Isaiah 61 speaks about freedom and release, and sometimes the prison is not physical. Sometimes it is a false narrative attached to your name. When those lies collapse, freedom becomes real and visible. You may even notice subtle changes as clarity arrives. Conversations may shift. People may begin responding to you differently. Respect may increase where hesitation once existed. That is because credibility carries weight, and when integrity is restored, influence naturally grows. In difficult seasons, people remember calmness under pressure. They remember honesty without defensiveness. They remember the person who stayed steady while chaos unfolded around them. Restoration can also become practical. What was delayed may begin moving again. Doors that closed may reopen. Decisions may be reconsidered. Opportunities may return with greater clarity than before. But beyond all the practical changes, something deeper is happening. God is bringing alignment back into your life. You may be leaving behind people, environments, or old versions of yourself that no longer belong in your future. And although separation is painful, it often creates the space necessary for expansion. But as vindication unfolds, there is an important warning you cannot ignore. Do not become what hurt you. Justice can restore your name, but bitterness can still damage your heart if you allow it to grow. Pain naturally wants repayment. It wants validation. It wants revenge disguised as righteousness. But Hebrews 12:15 warns against allowing bitterness to take root, because bitterness never stays contained. It spreads into your words, your thinking, your relationships, and eventually your character. There may be a temptation to expose every flaw of the people who hurt you, or to constantly remind others that you were right all along. Resist that temptation. Humility is the final evidence of maturity. If God defended you without arrogance, then carry your restoration without arrogance too. Forgiveness does not mean pretending nothing happened. It means refusing to let what happened shape you into someone hardened and bitter. Romans 12:21 says, "Not to be overcome by evil, but to overcome evil with good." That is not weakness, that is spiritual strength. At the same time, forgiveness does not require unlimited access. You can release someone spiritually while still protecting yourself wisely. Boundaries are not hatred. Sometimes they are wisdom born from experience. Boundaries are not bitterness. They are wisdom shaped through experience. What you went through taught you important lessons, and you should not ignore them. But do not allow those lessons to turn you cold, guarded, or cynical. C.S. Lewis once said that loving at all means becoming vulnerable. You trusted people. You believed the best about them. That openness may have been taken advantage of, but vulnerability is not foolishness. Real growth is learning how to love and trust with wisdom, not deciding never to trust again. Your purpose is far greater than this conflict. If resentment becomes your identity, then your entire calling gets reduced to one painful chapter. But God did not preserve you just so you could survive hardship. He preserved you so you could build, lead, influence, and restore others. That is why you must protect your heart carefully now. Speak truth, but do not use it as a weapon. Create healthy boundaries, but do not build emotional walls around your soul. Move forward with clarity, not cruelty. The greatest proof that God truly vindicated you will not simply be that your name was cleared. It will be that your character stayed Christ-like, even when you had every reason to become bitter. This season is about more than legal correction or public clarity. It is about identity. When your name has been questioned, even quietly, it affects something deep inside you. You may know you are innocent and still feel the weight of being misunderstood. Over time, accusations can slowly weaken confidence if you are not careful. But this season is not only exposing wrong, it is restoring who you are. Ecclesiastes reminds us there is a time to tear down and a time to build. Certain things had to fall apart first. False trust, unhealthy alliances, misplaced loyalty. But now, rebuilding begins with sharper discernment. You will not enter this next chapter naive. You will enter wiser. Your circle may become smaller, but it will also become stronger. Trust will no longer be automatic. It will be intentional. That is not fear. That is maturity. You may also notice new people entering your life. People who value your integrity instead of exploiting it. Do not rush those connections. Healthy relationships are built slowly and honestly. What was delayed in your life may now begin moving again with peace attached to it. And peace is often one of the clearest signs that God is guiding the transition. What you suffered was not wasted. The confusion sharpened your discernment. The restraint strengthened your spirit. The exposure clarified your path. You are no longer reacting emotionally to everything around you. You are moving with conviction. That is growth. But protect this new season carefully. When God clears space in your life, that space becomes sacred. Do not rush to fill it with noise, unnecessary explanations, or people who no longer belong there. Not everyone deserves access to your plans. Sometimes growth requires quiet preparation. Even Jesus often withdrew privately before stepping publicly into the next assignment. Silence is not secrecy, it is stewardship. The storm you feared did not destroy you, it refined you. And now you are not starting over from weakness, you are beginning again from strength. What tried to bury your story actually revealed it. What tried to intimidate you ended up strengthening you. Heaven saw every silent battle you fought. While you waited, God was already aligning truth in your favor. What tried to break you ultimately revealed the strength God placed inside you. Every delay, every false narrative, and every hidden battle became the very thing that refined your character, sharpened your discernment, and prepared you for a greater season ahead. The truth did not just clear your name, it restored your identity, your peace, and your direction. Now you move forward not with bitterness or fear, but with quiet confidence, knowing that what God protects can never be permanently destroyed, and what He has called will always rise again in clarity, strength, and purpose.